34 years old, no inheritance, no trust fund, no windfall, no viral business, no cryptocurrency moonshot, just a normal salary, normal life, normal starting point, and retired. Not the Instagram version of retirement where you're sipping cocktails on a yacht. The real version, where work is optional, where your investments cover your expenses, where Monday morning feels like Saturday morning because the difference stopped mattering. I know how this sounds. I know the immediate reaction. There must be something I'm not telling you. Some advantage, some secret, some piece of the story that makes it not actually applicable to a normal person. There isn't. What got me there was a specific sequence of decisions, made consistently over 11 years, that most people either don't know about or know about and don't execute. Today, I'm walking through exactly what happened, the numbers, the timeline, the specific decisions, and what I know now that I wish I'd known earlier. The starting point. 23 years old, first real job, salary of $52,000. Nothing special about this starting point. Average salary, average city, average student loan debt of $28,000 from 4 years of state university. Net worth at 23, negative $28,000. The one thing I had that I didn't fully appreciate at the time, I started paying attention to money before I started spending money. Before I signed a lease, before I bought a car, before I set up my lifestyle, I did the math on what was actually possible if I made specific choices. And the math revealed something that changed everything. If I kept my expenses at $24,000 annually, roughly $2,000 monthly, and invested the rest of my take-home income, the timeline to financial independence was not 30 years. It was roughly 10 to 12 years. 10 to 12 years, not because of a high salary, because of the ratio between income and expenses. That ratio, not the absolute income, is what determines the timeline to financial independence. The decision that made everything else possible. The most important financial decision I made at 23 had nothing to do with investing. It was about housing. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate. Total rent for my share, $650 monthly. In the city I lived in, a 1-bedroom apartment averaged $1,200 monthly. That $550 difference monthly, every month, for the first 6 years, is the foundation of everything that followed. $550 monthly invested at 7% return over 6 years, approximately $47,000. Not from earning more, from choosing a roommate over a private apartment. I want to be direct about this because it's the decision most people won't make. It feels like a step backward, like something you do in college and graduate from. But that $550 monthly difference, compounded over time, funded a significant portion of my path to financial independence. The lifestyle choice that feels like sacrifice at 23 produces the options that feel like freedom at 34. The income side. I didn't stay at $52,000. I made deliberate career moves, prioritizing income growth over other factors. Year 3, change companies. Salary increased to $68,000. Year 5, developed a specific high-demand skill. Salary increased to $85,000. Year 7, consulting on the side added $14,000 annually to base salary. Year 9, changed companies again. Salary at $110,000. Year 11, base plus consulting, producing approximately $135,000 annually. The income growth was deliberate. Every few years I evaluated whether my current employer was paying market rate. If not, I moved. The market value of my skills increased with experience. I captured that value by changing employers rather than waiting for internal raises that rarely kept pace with market. The combination of starting low and growing to $135,000 is a normal career trajectory for someone with technical skills who prioritizes income growth. This is not exceptional. This is the trajectory available to most people in professional fields who actively manage their career rather than passively accepting what their employer offers. The actual numbers. Let me show you the savings rate that made this possible. Year 1 through 3. Salary $52,000 to $68,000. Annual expenses, $24,000. Savings rate approximately 52% of take-home. Year 4 through 6. Salary, $68,000 to $85,000. Expenses increased to $28,000 for a small lifestyle upgrade. Savings rate approximately 58% of take-home. Year 7 through 9. Salary, $85,000 to $110,000 plus consulting. Expenses at $32,000. Savings rate approximately 63% of take-home. Year 10 and 11. Salary, $110,000 to $135,000. Expenses at $36,000. Savings rate approximately 67% of take-home. The savings rate is the number, not the income, not the investment returns. The savings rate. Above 50% of take-home income saved and invested consistently produces financial independence in roughly 10 to 12 years regardless of starting salary. Below 30%, 30 plus years. Between 30 and 50%, 15 to 25 years. Above 50%, 10 to 15 years. The timeline compresses dramatically as the savings rate increases, and the savings rate is a function of the gap between income and expenses, not of absolute income. Where the money went. Every year, the invested money went to specific places in a specific order. First, 401k up to full employer match. Free money, non-negotiable. Second, Roth IRA maximum contribution. Tax-free growth for decades. The account I will never pay taxes on in retirement. Third, health savings account maximum. Triple tax advantage. Medical expenses in retirement are real. This account covers them tax-free. Fourth, taxable brokerage for everything above. No contribution limits. Full flexibility. The investments themselves were not sophisticated. Total US Market Index Fund, International Index Fund, Bond Index Fund. As I approached financial independence, low FEs, broad diversification, consistent contributions regardless of market conditions. I did not time the market. I did not pick stocks. I did not move to cash when markets look scary. I contributed on schedule, every paycheck. Automatically. The moment I realized it was possible. Year 7. Net worth crossed $250,000. Something changed in the math at that point. My portfolio was generating approximately $17,500 annually in returns. More than 6 months of my expenses. I was no longer solely dependent on my income. My money was working. Each year after that, the portfolio returns grew. By year 10, the portfolio was generating approximately $45,000 annually in returns. My expenses were $32,000. The portfolio was generating more than my expenses. Not nominally, I wasn't withdrawing, but the mathematical reality was clear. If I stopped working at that point, the portfolio growth would cover my expenses indefinitely at a conservative withdrawal rate. I didn't stop at year 10. I worked 2 more years to build additional margin, to extend the runway, to make sure the math worked in bad market scenarios, not just average ones. Year 11. Net worth approximately $920,000. Portfolio generating approximately $64,000 in annual returns against expenses of $36,000. The withdrawal rate needed was 4%. The margin was substantial. The math worked in multiple scenarios. I left my job. What retirement actually looks like. I want to be honest about what this actually means day to day. I'm not traveling the world continuously. I'm not on a beach. The first 3 months felt genuinely strange. The structure that work provided disappeared. The identity that came from professional achievement disappeared. That adjustment was harder than I expected. What the freedom actually looks like. I work on projects I choose. I take consulting work when it interests me. I don't take it when it doesn't. I earn money sometimes. Between $2,000 and $8,000 monthly from consulting and a small content business. None of it required. All of it chosen. The portfolio continues to grow because my actual spending is below the maximum withdrawal rate. The freedom is not the absence of work. It's the presence of choice. That's what financial independence actually delivers. Not endless leisure, endless optionality. What I'd do differently. 3 things I'd change. I'd invest the raise faster. Several times when my income increased, I let a few months pass before adjusting my automatic investments upward. Those months added up over a decade. I'd start the health savings account earlier. I didn't open and SHA until year 6. 4 years of triple tax advantaged growth missed. I'd worry less about market volatility in the early years. Several times when markets dropped, I felt anxiety that didn't produce anything useful. The money stayed invested, but the anxiety was unproductive. Understanding volatility as the mechanism of returns earlier would have made the journey easier. 34 years old. Normal salary that grew through deliberate career management. No inheritance. No windfall. The math that got there. High savings rate maintained consistently. Income growth pursued actively. Tax-advantaged accounts used correctly. Low-cost index funds held through volatility. None of this is secret. None of it requires exceptional income or exceptional intelligence. It requires starting before you have it figured out. Saving more than feels comfortable. Making housing and lifestyle decisions based on what you're building toward rather than what your peer group expects. And then waiting. Trusting the math. Not disrupting the compounding. The people who retire at 34 are not fundamentally different from the people who retire at 67. They just started with a different question. Not, what lifestyle can I afford on this income? But, what lifestyle do I choose that makes financial independence achievable within 10 years? That question, asked at 23, produces a different answer and a different life.